What's good, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle-earth, to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, and is presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, and that is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you are listening to this show on. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. In tonight's episode of Disguise Coverage, there is some more Buffalo Bills football to happen this week. The Bills are fully in the midst of their preseason schedule, and at the end of this week, on Saturday, they will be in Pittsburgh to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so the focus of tonight's episode will be kind of, taking a step back now that we've had full opportunity to digest the underwhelming performance against the Chicago Bears in week one, and kind of taking a step back from that, analyzing the tape, putting all of that into perspective, and using it to kind of basically go forward in terms of who and what to watch for in week two against the Pittsburgh Steelers, similar to what we did in week one heading into that Bears game. But now we've got an actual real live, actual kind of football performance to evaluate off of, to kind of set that table further, make a better foundation, and have a better jumping off point going into week two against the Steelers. And there are some significant pieces to talk about. And, as Kendall and I talked on the post-game show after the loss to the Bears, it's not the end of the world, but it was a less than ideal performance. So that puts some players into perspective, some schematic and structural pieces into perspective. We're going to dive into those tonight in terms of, the top things to watch for and look for, the who's and the what's going into this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mentioned Kendall, and I say we, and that's because Kendall's joining me again for another episode. This is 3 episodes in a row. One of them, of course, being that post-game show, which is kind of special edition stuff once we get into the preseason. But Kendall, 3 episodes in a row for you? It's pretty awesome.
We're on a hot streak. There's going to have to be a heat check.
I was literally going to say, I was just about to say we got to figure out a way to heat check. I don't know how, because it doesn't apply in this scenario. But
no, it doesn't. But that's definitely the term of choice.
We need to turn off our Wi-Fi and see if it'll still work. I don't know if that's the heat check. We have to do something digitally, but you are back for your 3rd consecutive episode. And Kendall, like I mentioned in the intro, and like we did last week, going into that game against the Bears, top things to watch for, who, what, anything and everything. Could be high level, could be niche down, could be detailed. But going into this game, like I mentioned in the intro, high level, now that we've had time to fully digest that Bears game, we've gone and we watched the All-22 and really kind of let things sit in terms of that performance as a team, and then also from an individual player standpoint. High level, where are you at right now coming out of that Bears game, going into this week 2 game against the Steelers?
Yeah, I feel like the most general and broadest thing I could say going into week 2 is just playing with a little bit more urgency. Obviously there's a lot of players on the roster that don't really have a whole lot to fight for, but there are a lot of position battles happening. And I just feel like from a mental perspective, maybe discipline with all the penalties and just an urgency perspective on wanting to play fast and decisive. It felt like we really only saw that from the starters, which is frustrating considering those aren't the guys fighting for the spots.
That's fair.
So I think just generally seeing more urgency and some more discipline and headiness on the situations of, okay, it's 3rd and 12, I can sink into coverage here and let this flat away because it might open something up at the sticks. Just really playing more urgent and more heady with a game under your belt. I think that's kind of the most general, broad thing I can say moving and spinning this forward to week 2 against the Steelers.
That's fair. What's funny too? The penalties, I forgot about the penalties until going back and watching the All-22.
Yeah.
And I would just see
so many plays.
Yeah, I would just see the flag get tossed, or I'd see I'd be like, oh, or I forgot how the sequence of the game happened. So I'd be like, oh, that was a good game for the offense. How come this drive stalled out? And then I'd see the flag and be like, oh, because this completion got called back. Okay, never mind. Just it very much felt like, I think going back and watching on the All-22, it felt like a preseason game.
Yeah.
It felt like the opening game.
Yeah.
Like they were not. And again, I don't mean to say this to because there's some people who are. I mean, we saw it in the post game. So some people who are really super far out on the edge of like this season is done, this team is terrible, or the people who are anti Sean McDermott use this as another example to be like,
It's
see,
a
McDermott,
fantastic jumping off point preseason week 1.
yeah, like McDermott can't get it done. Look how they showed up in the preseason week 1, yada yada. But at the end of the day, like while I do think that is extremely extreme, they did not look good
They
from an
did.
execution standpoint, from a performance standpoint, just from a discipline standpoint, like you talked about. Yeah, I would even just settle for like a cleaner game, just more
Right.
fundamentals, more technique, less rust. And again, too, like it is the first preseason game. I'm also interested, like we talked about in the post game show over the weekend. I am interested to see how these joint practices kind of
Yeah.
lead to that game. Does it help them kind of work out some of the kinks prior to the game? How much
Mhm.
intensity is there Thursday and Friday? And then how much of that transitions and kind of boils over or spills over into the game on Saturday? Yeah, I'm hoping this is kind of, I don't want to say it just flashed in my head. And I was like, I don't want to say this because it's a preseason, but like how much of this is like a get right game for them, which sounds
Well,
so ridiculous in
I've
the
had
preseason,
the
but also kind
thoughts.
of,
No, it's kind of fair. I mean, it left a bad taste in the mouth. Like it just wasn't a good game. You want to spin forward positively. You don't
mhm.
want to stack negative performances. Like it weirdly it's a bounce back game.
Yeah.
I can't argue with it.
And I think, and that's again, while there is the larger scale of it is the preseason, everybody take a break. This is more about depth evaluation and roster
Mhm.
filling than it is like getting everybody, getting the starters iron sharpens iron. Everybody's ready and raring to go.
Right.
You do still want to see the starters click. You do want to see the depth
Mhm.
guys perform. And again, even if you don't have the most talented roster, you still want to see the fundamentals and the technique and the execution and the discipline that all the things that the Bills did not have
Yeah.
in that opening game against Chicago. So yeah, I do think that's fair. Just not to the point of jettison this team into the sun and they're not accomplishing anything and they're not going anywhere. Anything else for you, high level, or do you want to jump right into it?
No, I'm good there. That's probably like my most broad thought on the Bills so
Same,
far.
same, same, same. All right, let's jump into it. What and who to watch for Bills versus Steelers preseason week 2, as we do here on the show. Those of you joining us live, playing at home, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything and everything you got, throw it up into the chat. I will bring up as many things as humanly possible. As of course, as is tradition here, super chats get priority. One, because I respect the monetary donation. Two, because I see the color and it takes me away from everything else that I'm doing and puts my focus on it. Also, too, if you think our who's and what's to watch for are dumb, feel free to jump into that and tell us that in the chat. If you think they're great, feel free to jump into the chat and tell us that as well. I like this from Andrew saying, set the controls for the heart of the sun. Yeah, just send this team right there. I like that. I like that. Pop's coming in and saying who's going to be the backup right tackle. That's one of my points, and not that position specifically, but some offensive line pieces are specifically in
Mhm.
there for me. Yeah, it's going to be a fun episode here, depending on where you are on this team, where your head's at, where your heart is at, all of those things. Kendall, start us off. And for those who don't know, we're each going to go through our top 3 things that we'll be watching for. It could be a who, it could be a what, it could be large scale, it could be small scale, it could be some tiny little detail, it could be something super broad, it could be anything and everything. Kendall doesn't know mine. I don't know his. And we're going to be going through. Oh, nice eye, Roy. Roy says, I see you changed the tree. I changed the little things in the back. I still am rocking the red, white, and blue 4th of July style garland. But because it's the preseason and August doesn't really have like a holiday or calendar event that can go with a color theme for a tree, I just left it because it's Bills colors. And I figure, hey, celebration because Bills football is back, preseason stuff. But I like where your head's at, Roy. All right. Kendall, you're up. What do you want to go? You could do anything and everything you want. Your most important, your least important. They could all be equal. The floor is yours.
I'm gonna go with offensive line because of how things went this week.
Okay.
I just feel like with the I feel like the tone was it tried to get set by Joe Brady and they wanted to run the football in the preseason and kind of prove to themselves, like confidence booster wise, that they can do
Mm,
that. And it just got off to such a bad start. And I feel like it really never saw the light of day. There weren't a lot of big holes to be had in the game for any of the running backs. And
I
I
agree.
do kind of want to tie this to a conversation on the running backs because I want to get a better sense and feel for evaluating Ray Davis and Frank Gore Jr.
Good call.
And I think this kind of muddies the waters a little bit with, a few carries here and there being met like at the line of scrimmage or before the ball carrier really has a chance to make a move.
Yeah.
Didn't happen like anything crazy alarming rate, but it happened enough to, muddy the waters. So I think it's also a little tough because I want to see better from the starters, but because there's joint practice, I don't know how much we're going to see the starters this week.
Mm,
Um, Kind of worries me just because I want to see it, but I'm sure if they don't play, it means they're fine.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess this then boils down to those backups because we saw this past week against the Bears, the backups didn't fare much better than the starters did in that game. So
Yeah.
talked about it in the post game show, talking about it again. Like there just has to be an improvement up front, and it kind of also links to my prior broad thought on just the sense of urgency, kind of
Mm,
playing more dominant and physical and decisive. Um, but that obviously is all tied to mental, and you
mm.
have to feel confident in your assignments and all of that kind of stuff. So it's all linked, and it obviously is all very broad, and that's football. But I think it's offensive line for me, especially against the Steelers, an AFC North team that
Mm.
likes to be physical. Like this is a good litmus test for, how can we bounce back from such a poor showing in week one? Here's our opportunity to kind of prove that we can get back on track. So I think there's a lot of layers to it, but yeah, offensive line, I'm eager to see how they bounce back.
That was one of mine as well. So I'm in lockstep with you. Also, just I'm not I'm not a big like raw stats kind of guy, but and again, it's preseason, but if you look at the Bills rushing numbers in that
Hmm.
game against the Chicago Bears, and again, preseason, week one, yada yada, 26 attempts for 77 yards. That's a yards per attempt of 3.0. 22 of those were for Shane Buechele scrambling. 12 of those yards were for Mitch Trubisky. So that is what, 55. And so they had 43 yards basically for their non-quarterbacks rushing in that game, if my math is correct. Ray Davis, 5 attempts, 2 yards.
Yeah.
A yards per attempt of 0.4. That's really kind of where I'm in lockstep with you. Like I said, in that regard, I wanted to see more from Ray Davis and more from Gore. And his pops is in the comments. Yeah, Allen had a scramble for 7 yards. So yeah, you have a Josh Allen quarterback run there as well, 1 for 7 yards. I wanted to see what the running backs could do. And I saw some flashes from Ray Davis in the past game, especially on the tape. Saw some flashes from Frank Gore, but I wanted to see more of it in the traditional run. The run game really did not get going until the third team went in there, and we got some of those pin and pull runs
Hmm.
with VPG kind of leading things out and Darrington Evans following behind him. It was, and like you said, it's frustrating because if the O-line is playing bad, not only is the O-line playing bad, and that's bad for the O-line, but it makes everything else so hard to evaluate. Like the quarterbacks don't have time in the pocket. The running backs don't have time to do anything. Like Ray Davis was getting hit before the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage on multiple handoffs. It just makes everything so much harder. There's that trickle-down effect from a negative standpoint. And so much of the preseason, like we talked about, is about evaluation, is about filling out that roster, who can do what and in what scenario. And if the offensive line can't function, it makes it so hard to evaluate everyone else. Like, this wide receiver, we don't know because the quarterback's running for his life in the first second and a half. And so the route distribution falls apart and the pass opportunity falls apart. So it starts with the offensive line for me and really just kind of holistically, broad term. I would like to see if they can get push and create displacement.
Yeah.
And like you said, especially versus that Steelers front, we'll see who plays, but they've just got dudes, Keanu Benton and then
Hmm.
Adams, Ogunjobi, Watt, Hayward, Highsmith. I doubt Highsmith plays. He's got a groin. So I doubt they, gear him up for a preseason game, but whether it's the starters or the second or third team dudes, they can get after it in Pittsburgh. And then, again, like we talked about in the post game and like you just mentioned, it seems like whoever they have, like once you put on the Steelers and uniform, like
Yeah.
it just takes over.
Give
Like
them
you
a
want,
few months and they'll
yes,
assimilate
Yes.
to that. Yeah.
Everybody who puts on that uniform assimilates to the Steelers culture and the mentality. It's like, yeah, they kind of understand the assignment
Yeah.
and what they're there to do. And the brand just kind of takes over at that point. And I think also, too, again, adding in the joint practices, I think gives them extra work as well. Cause like even if those starters, those dudes aren't playing in the preseason game, they're going to go against each other in practice because those dudes are hopefully and most likely practicing. But yeah, can they get pushed? Can they create displacement? Because it was something that we saw this team struggle with from the starters, from the second team, from the third team. Again, the third team, I think, had some more positives to them in the run game and some pieces in pass pro. But man, like Austin Booker, 94, that rookie from Kansas, he was giving it to Vandermark, and even on the right side of the line too. Their backup edges looked good. Robinson, number 90, gave it to Spencer Brown on several reps with the ones. And then even just the, I think it was Connor McGovern, I'm not positive, who said it after the game, kind of like, they were doing stunts and different things up front that, as soon as we, it happened, we go to the sideline and we knew everything they were doing and what they were talking about, yada, yada, yada. But it was just, and again, the Bears weren't doing anything crazy, but it was disappointing to kind of see the Bills, like, ones just get completely wrecked from like a run stunt. And the little pieces that kind of affect them like that. Like, just like, okay, cool. We're going to take
time to practice and get better. Like, yeah, you got to react to it.
That's it. Just taking a defensive end and being like, we're going to put him in the B gap and put this linebacker in the C gap. That shouldn't destroy everything that you're doing. And granted, sometimes the timing is perfect. You call a run stunt against the perfect run at the right time, and it just can blow everything up. It's like calling that slot corner blitz to the side that the quarterback's going to naked to. And you're just like, oh my God, what friggin' timing for that play. So there is some of that kind of like perfect storm aspect hitting them. But yeah, just thought overall, again, watching it back on the tape, it was just a really bad offensive line performance, lack of protection, even though Buechele kind of invited some of that on him. He had some opportunities to get the ball downfield, didn't take advantage of it. But yeah, the O-line overall was not great. But going into some of kind of like the hidden gems, I feel like I keep saying this a lot as we talk about on the post game. I liked what Cedric Van Pran-Granger did. In the run, on the move, getting to the second level, climbing, attaching to dudes, and kind of staying on them for a bit. Something I thought he needed to work on based on his tape at Georgia. But I liked what he did. I'm interested to see kind of how he continues to grow as a run blocker and as a pass protector. We did see some of like the pieces that he showed at Georgia, the movement and the physicality, but also like the awareness, the constant scanning and trying to figure out who he needs to provide help to. I also thought La'el Collins was a nice piece at left guard with the second team. I think where he is at in his career, having him be at guard, allowing him to lean into his experience and his size and his power, and not having him have to rely on athleticism and being able to mitigate the movement pieces by putting him at guard, I think is one, helpful for him, but two, I thought he was a nice calming piece on that line. He gave Vandermark some help at left tackle on multiple occasions. I thought his length showed, the technique showed, the veteran presence. Like I felt good about him kind of being in the mix there. And I don't want to paint it with too broad of a brush, but like other than Collins and VPG, I really didn't like what the offensive line did. Like it was just not, you know what? I shouldn't say that. Deion Dawkins had 2 really good snatch traps. So that was in midseason form for him, which I really liked. But yeah, I think it starts with the O-line because like we said, it just leads to it's such a heavy factor in terms of evaluating everything else for the offense. And it's an important part of football. And with how important the run game is going to be for the Bills this year, part of the whole like, oh man, reduced formational width and these body types they have at wide receiver and tight end, a lot of that value is tied to the threat of the run and being able to run the ball as a team. And if you can't do that, I don't want to say they're dead in the water, but it's going to be significantly harder. And then if you also add on like pass protection issues, then you're getting, even more muddy. But I thought the ones, while being underwhelming versus the run, I thought they largely were fine in pass pro. Like I thought the whole group from Dawkins, Brown had several reps where he looked kind of rough. But then he had a couple where he looked great. So it was kind of like the Spencer Brown roller coaster reared its head again. But Torrance had a couple really good reps in pass pro. So did McGovern. So did I thought the ones were largely fine in pass pro, but the run game was bad. And then the second team O-line was pretty much bad in everything minus La'el Collins. And also kind of seeing that too. How does the depth show out? Like we talked about with corner, at some point, your corners are going to get hurt, so you need depth at corner. The same thing happens at O-line. What the Bills had last year with their starting O-line being healthy for the entirety of the year, that is a rarity times 1,000 in football at any level. So your depth is going to get tested. You need at least like 2 good dudes on the bench that you're comfortable putting in, preferably a guard and a tackle. Like right now, if something happened to Edwards or Torrance, I'm decently comfortable being like, okay, cool. Lyle Collins can do this. If Brown or Dawkins go down,
different
I'm
question.
terrified of who's going in a tackle. Like I don't feel comfortable at all. Like Vandermark is better on the left than he is on the right, but he didn't look great in that first game. I'm not confident in Grable. We'll see what he can be. And then everyone else was kind of in that same boat. So yeah, really seeing how that depth kind of comes into form, because it's scary after that first team. And then again, first team, they got to get some push, but yeah, the depth was a scary piece to see.
Yeah, back to the run game specifically. I mean, I just went and looked at it. The Bills allowed they got 0.9 yards before contact per carry in this game, which only happened to them 4 times last year.
I was gonna say, which is not good.
Yeah, the 4 times it happened to them last year, they ran for less than 4 yards per carry in those games.
And also
ideal.
tying that into, dang, let me guess. I'm not going to be able to find it now. No. Oh, yeah. Last year as a team, I don't have the exact number, but last year they were 5th in rushing yards before contact as a team.
Exactly.
And then if you're talking just running back carries, they were 3rd in running back yards before contact and 2nd in running back yards before contact per carry. So whether you're talking volume, whether you're talking efficiency, they were tremendous last year in keeping everybody clean through the line. Yeah, we did not. Like we talked about in the post game too. They ran dart on that first run play.
Yeah, like twice in the first 5 plays of the game or something.
And Edwards got mashed and got no movement and no push. And then Tremaine, I thought it was so funny that on that first one, like Edmonds met Brown in the hole and gummed it up. And I was like, that's ironic. That not only did this play work, but Tremaine Edmonds had like a hand in it. Like I thought that was a little ironically poetic. Yeah, I'm lockstep with you. And again, I think it's nice to kind of the conversation like that was around this game last year with the Bills and Steelers. It's like, okay, cool. Like Spencer Brown, like, can he be more consistent? Cool. You're going to go up against TJ Watt a bunch. Like, let's kind of see what happens against the Steelers. So this will be a nice little litmus test, like you mentioned. Yeah, I'm in lockstep with you on the offensive line. Anything else on the O-line before we move to our next topic?
No, let's keep it moving.
All right, you're up for number 2. I'm interested to see kind of how the rest of your list follows through and how much we're just like, oh, yeah, same. Oh, yeah, same. Or if we have like different pieces.
1 for 1. Did you go order? Did you go in an order? Did you rank them?
O-line is number 1 for me.
I didn't rank mine, so I mean, it's I guess just coincidental that it was the first one that I said.
Yeah, it's fair. I in theory didn't either, but if you like pressed
There's
me
a
on
reason
it, I would
you
say
did it
O-line.
in an order.
Yeah, like O-line is my top. But I could be swayed. No, O-line is my top overall. Because, again, mainly just because of the lack of push and displacement in the run game for the ones, and then just how bad everybody else was. Like, I was scared, like, coming out of the game and out of the tape.
Yeah. So my second one, I didn't really rank mine, but my second one that I'm going to talk about is kind of broadly rookies, but specifically Keon Coleman.
Oh, okay.
After watching the tape, I was, happy with the little things that he did. But from a route running perspective, there's still just a little bit to be desired with him. And I mean, obviously it's all just a work in progress. And the idea of drafting him in the first place was the fact that he has a lot of room to grow.
Yes.
So it's not like doom and gloom for me to say this. It's just kind of, he did some little things to get open, and there were times that he was open when the ball wasn't thrown his way and stuff like that. So it's not to say everything's bad, but there is definitely still some room for growth, and I'm just kind of eager to watch more reps because we only got so many with him, and we got a handful with him with Mitch Trubisky and not Josh Allen. So that, like, I want to hopefully get that overlap where we get to see him with Josh Allen. But like I said earlier, I just don't know about the starters reps in this game because of the joint practice. But then moving along, I guess, to other rookies, most notably, I would tie it to Dwayne Carter because Dwayne Carter got a lot of snaps because of Ed Oliver going down right away.
Mhm.
And he played a lot of snaps at one tech, which was less ideal than, we'd hope for someone.
Good call. And going back and watching the tape, I was like, they're 3-teching Austin Johnson a bunch.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if it's because they were like, man, you really slimmed down. You look great. Do you want to play 3 instead of 1? Yeah.
For whatever reason. But yeah, I'm just kind of eager to see once again how he improves. I remember we talked about Dwayne Carter and kind of saying how underwhelming he was in this game. And after watching the tape, I want to retract some of it because there were definitely some times when he was at one tech
Good
and he was
call.
taking on double teams and he was doing his job. It's just unnoticed.
He had a couple
So,
nice like tackles or stops. I'm thinking
yeah.
of the one. There was one, I think towards the red zone for the Bears. Spector got out in front and got under his man, and he forced the cutback in the hole.
Yes.
And Carter made the tackle because he came flat down the
Yes.
line. He didn't get reached by
The
his
wide
man.
zone.
Yes. Granted,
Yes.
it was a little hard for that right guard to reach him based on where Carter was, but he did a good job not getting reached, getting down the line, making the tackle. I was like, oh, okay, that's nice.
Like he did some things, but yeah, on first watch on broadcast, it was like, wow, like not feeling this guy at all,
Yeah.
getting washed out of every play. It was some plays. It did happen on some plays.
Yeah, there was a
wasn't
couple
every
double
play.
teams where he got like knocked back, but then he had one where he like dropped the knee well and held his guard.
Exactly. And you're like,
a
wow,
little bit.
okay, yeah, you can be useful at one tech in a pinch.
That's why we say, man, with the trenches, you got to wait for the all 22 because broadcast doesn't. That side angle, especially if you are not the near side to the camera. So if there's an edge player, a defensive tackle, and then you, it's hard to see what the hell is going on.
You can't see much. But yeah, you're not wrong. Like getting the coach's film for this game was huge, specifically for a player like him, because I would have gone into the next game like so underwhelmed and upset with how he played. And I felt like he played a very middling game. Like there were things to improve on and there were things to take away positively from it. So I'm kind of curious how he's going to do in the next week. And once again, it ties back to the idea of playing the Steelers in the trenches, like another big test, another litmus test. So excited for that. And then I'm trying to think, there was definitely another rookie.
Ray Davis.
No, because I already kind of touched on
Hardy.
Ray Davis.
Hardy, VPG, safety stuff, not having. Oh, Javon Solomon.
That was it. You nailed it. He had a really good game.
I feel like I did nail it, but I also was just naming like
no,
every
you're just
rookie,
naming
so
guys.
I was bound to get it. Yeah,
you got there. I threw a blank.
I'm a volume shooter.
Yeah, well,
James Harden
works for a lot of people out there.
That's what I do. Throw it all against the board, and if something sticks, I was right.
It stuck. Yeah, Javon Solomon had a really solid game. Like just from takeaways on who he is as a rookie, what he was doing in early snaps against starters, like the reps he got against like Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright was very encouraging. You can definitely see this guy has a lot of potential and room to grow despite maybe his limitations because of his height. Like it really doesn't prove to be that limiting for him. Like there's definitely some drawbacks for sure, but like he really fights through, has really great get off, really good feel to bend around the edge. You talked about it in the post game, like his game is going to be so immensely improved by that inside move to complement his outside rush. Yeah. And then there were still some handful of plays where he was running down the line on the backside of some wide zones. Like he was, obviously it's not his strong suit to play the run, but like especially if you get him out in space like that where he's unblocked and he's on the backside of a play, he's going to fill the space great. And he did it well with contain as well. So I was very happy with how he played, and I'm hoping he continues stacking. So I guess those are the three rookies I really want to highlight, with Ray Davis kind of really being, I guess, paperclip to the offensive line.
Fair. I like that. Paperclip. That's nice. I like that. I'll piggyback. So my second one was the defensive line. I broad brushed it.
Yeah.
But two of the talking points I have specifically were related to Carter and Solomon. I do want to start on Coleman with you mentioning it because I really like this comment from Pops. Pops said that Allen said Coleman got beat on that in route, but then he became the DB, and he's talking about that one in the red zone. And then this isn't a knock against Coleman. I thought that was his best play of the day. Like that was so heady to get into that moment and be like, uh-oh. And granted, he got beat, so it's a
He
bad
should
thing.
have never been in that position.
Yeah.
Like, the route was pretty lazy at the step,
Yes,
but
it was not a great route, but like he made a good DB play, like the punch through the
he did.
hands and getting the
It was very
breakup. Like
smart.
I liked that he
Exactly.
recovered in that way. And I hope that it takes like that learning moment, especially against like a corner of Jalen Johnson's caliber,
Exactly.
who I'm not pleased changed his number from 33 to 1. I thought the 33
Everyone's
looked
changing their numbers, bro.
it's
Get used to it.
one
Debo
is driving me
Samuel's a different
nuts.
number. Like,
No, he's not. Is
everyone.
he really? What is Debo?
I think he wears 1 now.
Oh, I hate it. And I just the
Garrett
the
Wilson wears a
way
different number.
the Bears have such a good looking jersey, and Johnson rocking the 33
Dude, I
was
feel
so
you on that, though.
symmetrical
Yeah,
and
it
was
was
so
nice.
nice. Yeah, it
It
was
was very
so
nice.
centered. Like I'm
Hey,
a
the
fan
1
of a
is
good
centered.
no, but it's just so skinny and it just looks meh. I don't like it. And especially this is gonna be like such a boomer take for me, especially on like a corner. Like I'm not about that.
Here
Like
we go. Get
yeah,
off
like
my lawn, and
right. Yeah, what's with social media nowadays and technology and electricity? Yeah, I just can't like if you're gonna go single digit as a corner, I need it to be like a 7 or like it's got to be like 5 and above. The rest of the fonts just don't line up right. And the
big
one was
fan of
driving me
Taron
nuts.
Johnson over here.
Taryn,
Number
oh, that's
7.
fair. Yeah, 7 is cool. I was actually when I first thought of 7, I was thinking of like Patrick Peterson at LSU. And I was
Yeah,
like, okay,
that
like
was
I'm
nice.
thinking of the 7s. Like, yeah, but so I'm annoyed at Jalen Johnson that he did that. And I'm also annoyed that their other corner in that game was like Jalen Jones. I was like, really? We're rocking double Jalen's and then we got number changes. Like, what is everybody doing?
It's a scouting pipeline. Just accept it.
That's fair. That's
The
understandable. The Jalen. Yeah, that's what's your NCAA 25 pipeline set to? Jalen's. What do you mean? Like not a country? Nope, it's just
it's a
Jalen's.
great crop of players.
It's just Jalen's. Everybody on my squad is a Jalen. Oh man, all the top 5, the 5-star recruits. I got no pipeline for them. Why? Because they're from like an area you're not scouting. No, they're not named Jalen. They're not named Jalen.
I can do.
Yes, I mean it's my pipeline. It is what it is. Yeah, Jalen Johnson had such a good year last year. Second team All-Pro corner. Legit dude. So it was nice to see kind of Coleman go up against him, and Johnson's legit. And I think I take that as a learning lesson of like, you can't get lazy with your routes at any point in the NFL,
especially
let alone
in the
against
red
like
zone.
Yes,
like you gotta be precise in the red zone. There's not a lot of space. You can't get lazy with false steps.
Yeah, that's fair. Ooh, Zach of all trades said, speaking of, Rap going to 9 is so bad in my opinion. I like the 9 on Rap.
I kind of liked it too.
Yeah, I feel. What's funny is I love a good 20. I didn't like the 20 on him. I like the 9 on him more than the 20.
Well,
but I also think it's the way like this is also going to like take it to another level. Good number aesthetic is also tied, I think, to like the size and frame of the player, and I think how Rap is
not a hot
built.
Take. Yeah, it fits him.
So again, I'm not good. I'm not crazy. I think the 9 fits him well because of his size and frame. I like this comment too. Rap as a 20 was so much more menacing. I don't know. I feel like
I'm like opposite. That's interesting.
I feel like the single digit on a safety is like, that dude's a psycho. Especially if it's not 1. Like if it's just a single digit, or if it was a 0, I'd be like, like that guy's coming for like a dude's head. Yeah, I feel like the single digit on the safety is kind of scary. But I like that. That's fair.
Definitely agree with you. Don't know why.
That's fair. Yeah, so I didn't love what I saw from Keon Coleman, but again, it's the preseason. And I also think the bar for him, I don't want to say it got like moved, but I think his athleticism and his size and frame plays very well to training camp highlights. And not that he has not had a good training camp, because he has. But I'm wary of, or I should say I'm worried about how good of a camp he's had and the highlights that get put out. I'm afraid of that setting a level of expectation for fans that he's ready to hit the ground running and ball out, and then as a rookie. And there's just so much more to it in the NFL regular season against the opposition's best. Rep in, rep out. Teams are studying you. They're game planning for you. Like the most you're going to get in training camp is like you're going up against dudes, regularly. And, you went up against Rasul Douglas 5 times today. By the second or third, and especially fourth time, Douglas is like, all right, last time he beat me with this. I'm going to watch for this, or I can read him and do this. Once you get into the season, like dudes are scouting for you. Like they know your route stem. They know your releases. They know what you work and so on and so forth. And so I think that first game was not even just, and the offense didn't play great on top of it, so it made it worse. But I think it's kind of is a little bit of a wake up call for everyone that like the
Yeah,
offense has looked good in training camp, but you're not just going to set the world on fire right out the gate from the preseason as a team in general, but especially as a rookie and especially for Coleman, who, like we talked about, I think the ceiling is legitimately high for him. I think he could be a true wide receiver one. I just think it could take like 3 years to get there because of how raw he is and how green he is. It all depends on what that trajectory looks like from a refinement and technicality, polish, precision standpoint, because he does not have that in his game. And we talked about it in the post game, even that little comeback route that a bunch of people were like, look at the separation, look at the separation. It was kind of clunky, and like it almost looked like he jammed his leg into the ground and his leg like locked out on him. Like he still needs that aspect to his game.
Yeah. A little rounding off on those jagged edges, but you can see, I think the main takeaway from this is like, as disappointing as parts of it were, there's still hope. Like, this guy is not someone we're closing the door on. This is not someone we're disappointed the Bills took. It's really just like, it's gonna take some time. And to your point on like the social media camp posts, like, to your point, his archetype is literally like create highlights for social. Like that's the type of receiver
he's a power forward.
Yeah.
Tice hit it the night of the draft. He's Sean Kemp. He's this highlight power dunker that makes you go like, ooh, and then it's like, oh yeah, but he went 6 of 18 from the floor, but he had these highlights that made you go, wow, this dude's
the moments in between are like, we know you have more in the tank. Like, give me the dunk. Mm-hmm. But you're not always going to get the dunk because
it's kind of, what it makes me think of, like early Clippers Blake Griffin. That was just this highlight dunk monster, but he had no mid range, he had no jumper, and then he started to get that.
So it's funny you say that. While you were talking before, I was thinking about how the Chiefs got off to a slow start with Rashee Rice, and then they kind of realized what his strengths were through the season, and he kind of started to. I think the Bills are going to have to do a little bit of that to help Keon Coleman's development, because he's sufficient in all areas, but there are some areas that you might need to hide of his game more than others. And I think the Bills need to do him justice by putting him in positions to win with what he's already strong enough to win with, and let him build that confidence, and then give him opportunities once he has the confidence to grow in his areas of improvement. And I think that's just all part of, human development and stuff like that. So I'm sure the Bills are on top of it and they'll figure that out for him. But to me, that feels like a trajectory that can help him. Not that he needs help mentally. He's very secure with who he is. But
and he's smart too. He's got a high football IQ.
Exactly. I mean, you saw it on the pass breakup. Like, he's a smart dude and he wants it. So I'm not worried about his trajectory, but I think something like that could help him early.
That was very well said. I wrote down this timestamp so I could cut this as a promo. That was very well said. I want to grab a couple comments from the chat. I want to grab this one first from Zach, who said, Ant, the design of your shirt plus your red hat is giving me KC vibes. Stop it. Do better. This is a Bills hat. And then this is a Miami Hurricanes t-shirt. I don't know what I did wrong. How is that giving KC vibes? I don't understand. And what's funny is I do have a Derek Thomas jersey because I loved Derek Thomas as a player. I should just go and change into that. I like the fair. I want to grab this comment from Jared, who said, did players ever change numbers without changing teams 10 years ago? I don't remember it as much. And a lot of it for me, sorry, I got to put
there's no way, right?
No,
there's no way
players did not change as much, but also too, and I think this is still the rule, if you change your number, you have to buy all the back stock. Yeah, okay. So you have to buy all the back stock of all the jerseys that have been put into production with your old number. So Debo, if he changes from 19 to 1, he has to buy every Debo Samuel number 19 jersey that's already been made. And so I think for like, especially the bigger players, that's like a hefty chunk of change.
I believe that's why Kirk Cousins didn't change to 8, because then he would have had to help Kyle Pitts buy out his remaining Kyle Pitts jerseys.
God, it's brutal. Man, Kyle Pitts just. I feel like every year I'm always like, man, the Falcons. And if the Falcons still can't get it together with like a new coaching staff and Kyle Pitts and
2 quarterbacks,
bro, Bijan is so good. Pitts, I understand, is a conventional, but is nasty. And then I love Drake London. You and I both love Drake London.
Well, like, Tyler Algier is going to get 50% of the touches, so get over yourself.
Oh man, just so disappointing. But yeah, so we'll see what Coleman can be in this next game. I wonder also too how much he draws of. Like, I'd like to see him versus Joey Porter Jr. on some physical
Yeah.
on physical action. Let's see
Yeah.
kind of what we get with that. Yeah, with what Coleman can do. But again, I think the highlight aspect of training camp may have set an unfair bar for him come the season. And, we will see. I just don't want people to see like in the first game, he's got like 2 catches for 22 yards. And the next game, he's got like 1 for 13. And everybody's like, he sucks.
He's the worst. Yeah, let's all learn from the Tremaine Edmonds experience and not just set unreasonable expectations.
Ed Oliver, I think, is in that boat too, because people were like, oh, he could be another Aaron Donald. And then everybody
Spencer Brown.
was like,
I mean, who you could say it with any top 3 round draft pick.
That's fair.
Or how Terrell Bernard was used after year 1. What a wasted pick. I did that. I know I did that. So like, let's all learn from prior experiences. Like, give the guy some grace. Kyer Elam, if he pans out this year, like let's just be patient. Like, there's 4 years where this guy has room to grow and prove that he belongs to stay.
Level-headed Kendall over here, breaking it down.
Try my best.
You do, and it shows. So D-line was my other point for number 2, and you mentioned some of them. So overall, high level, just for the group as a whole, I want to just see more effectiveness up front. Give me some penetration versus the run, generate some pressures, sacks, anything to show some wins up front. Like we talked about on the post game, it felt like in order to get a stop against the run, like they had to bring a run blitz. Like they had to bring bodies. It wasn't like, oh, okay, because so-and-so did this or so-and-so won up front, or they had multiple guys that do this. It felt like they were winning with volume. They were winning with quantity instead of quality, and that's not a successful recipe for success. And it felt like just versus Chicago, it was overall like from the starters all the way through for the most part, it just felt like a dull performance up front. You had some guys who made some nice plays. I thought Epinesa, like we were talking about offline, I think Epinesa had a fine start. You mentioned Solomon, who I'm going to talk about. I thought Cameron Klein had some nice reps as a pass rusher, but also he was one of the few edges in that game from a volume standpoint who did a good job setting the edge versus the run. He had a couple good reps where he was working through double teams. He was getting a tackle and a tight end on him, and he was splitting them, reducing his surface area, and maintaining his gap integrity and responsibility. So I like some of the things that he did. But again, overall, just for the group, I thought that, when they would run stunts, it was really clunky. They had clunky stunts in 2-man games. Guys were running into each other. Their timing looked off. It just all kind of going through to that lack of execution piece. Things just did not seem smooth on that. Things were not smooth and effective on the defensive line for the Buffalo Bills against the Chicago Bears. And then diving into some of the players, I'll start with Carter just because you went with him first. Yeah, in the post game, I talked about how I really liked the game that Austin Johnson had, and I did not like what Dwayne Carter did. After watching the All-22, I liked Carter a little bit more, and I liked Austin Johnson a little bit less because there were some reps where Johnson got blown off the ball against some doubles. And granted, that happened for Carter, but, I think Carter still is a work in progress. He did flash more than I thought, but can he just be more? Like, can he just show more in some way? Because and I've said this so much, like the tape at Duke showed a guy who, again, against double teams, he would get blown off the ball. He wasn't dropping the knee enough. He wasn't reducing his surface area. He wasn't recognizing that feed block coming from the side and recognizing it and adjusting it. He would get kind of blown, off the ball and blown out of the gap and allow for like kind of an alleyway to be created. And that happened at times against the Bears, but also just like the lack of pass rush pop from him. Like he was a quick get off, gap penetrator. Like he fit that Bills mold for a 3-tech, like somebody who's going to shoot their gap and, maybe they get caught in a trap or a wham block, but man, they're going to get blown. They're going to jump off the ball more often than not, and they're going to get into the backfield, cause some problems for the QB. Maybe they don't get home, but he'll generate pressures. He'll cause tackles for loss and negative plays against the offense. We just really didn't see that. We didn't see the gap shooting. We didn't see the penetration. It just seemed, again, overall, I feel like his performance was kind of somewhat of a microcosm of the defensive line as a whole, where it was just dull. It lacked bite. It lacked juice. And it was just very kind of, and again, like you said, like on watching the All-22, there were reps that I liked. And so I felt better about him than I did coming out of the broadcast. but I still did overall not like his performance against the Bears. Solomon, on the other hand, like you talked about, he's another one in me for my details. I like the game that he had. I liked him reading the mesh point against the run and making those plays at the line of scrimmage. One was early on and he read it on his side and came down, made the tackle. One later, it was a bootleg with Bajan, and I don't know if he read it or just guessed and sold out to make the stop on the run, but either way, he made the stop. He had one too that was nice. It was I think it was Bajan was still the QB. It was to when the Bears are kind of backed up towards their own goal line, and Bajan ends up, the quarterback steps up to try and scramble, and Andreessen kind of makes the stop a yard or two past the line of scrimmage. But Solomon tries to beat the left tackle around the corner. Oh, and then Cameron Klein beats the right tackle, which forces Bajan, I think, to step up and evade. And Solomon sees it and immediately slams on the brakes, spins and turns and gets upfield. And Andreessen makes the stop, but Solomon was right there. And I see little pieces like that along with his athleticism and his juice and his bend and his dip. And yeah, I was really encouraged by his opening performance. But like we talked about, and like the tape showed, I put a couple of them out on Twitter. He was going for that move that he won with so often at Troy, where he takes off to try and turn the corner. He flashes that hand to try and get you to commit, and then he dips. And he's either going to beat you around the corner, or even if you get hands on him, because he's got a lower center of gravity and he's got a strong core, he'll dip and flatten through your hands, and he'll rip through your arm, and he'll flatten and get to the QB. Darnell Wright just got enough of a hand on him to force him out, and it made him round out a little bit. It was on the big scramble by Caleb Williams for the first down on third down when the Bills ran 2-man. And Solomon still got around him, but it was just that little bit. Instead of getting clean and getting right to Williams, he just got pushed off a little bit and then had to retrace and go through the pocket. It happened to him later as well. Again, it's not the end of the world, but NFL length and strength and technique is far different than college in general, but especially, no disrespect, what is Troy in? Like the Sun Belt Conference?
I believe
so. That even more so. It's not like he's playing edge in the SEC, or even the Big Ten now, because the Big Ten has like 75 teams. Also, maybe UMass, according to your NCAA universe. We'll kind of see how that goes.
No, not anymore. No, I went ACC.
I wanted you to go crazy, be like, I went SEC.
I went ACC.
I joined the Pac-12. It's me, Oregon State, and Washington State. It's the three of us.
The Pac-3.
I would love that. Like, who's in the Pac-3? Oh, it's Oregon State, Washington State, and UMass.
What a travel schedule every
that
year.
Would suck. That's brutal. So it just, you're not going to win like that consistently at that size. And again, at the level of competition is just significantly higher here in the NFL. And so I want to see, does he develop more of an inside move? Can he threaten the outside and stab inside? Can he get a spin, something to, or even maybe instead of trying to bend and rip through the arc, maybe going with that arm drag a little bit, where you kind of like get through and then you grab the arm and use it to pull yourself through a little bit, maybe adjusting some of the hand technique, just something to, because I do think the bread and butter of his game is going to be the athleticism.
That shouldn't go away. It should still be attacking the outside shoulder, but diversify the portfolio.
Exactly. And so just putting more moves together. And like we talked about, like, this is a dude who, he understands pass rush plan. He understands, if I do this move in the first quarter, I can do it again. And then in the fourth quarter, I'm going to make them think it's coming and I'm going to do something else. So, but again, either way, like, even with that, very encouraging performance from him in that first game. And then also kind of with the defensive line as well. We alluded to it. Can they just be better versus outside runs? Like, just basic stuff like zone toss and crack toss. They got crushed as a group. And then also specifically, Pops threw it out there. He said, like, Smoot in all caps. Yeah, Smoot got a couple times in not setting the edge and letting some runs get outside. I think Smoot was the one on the edge on that play that you and I were texting about earlier, where Rapp blows up the fullback. I think they turned the corner because Smoot gets put inside. They just did not hold the edge well as a group. And that's like as football 101 as it gets. Like, don't let the run get outside you. You have to be that force player. Like, you have to set the edge, no pun intended, as the edge player there. So can they do that better? Again, I think that goes into kind of like the fundamentals and the technique of it, going into the kind of the dull performance, the group lacking bite and tenacity. And then let's throw anybody else in there too. Like, if anybody else can make a play. But I thought, Yeah, Austin Johnson was all right after watching the tape. I didn't like what Deshaun Williams put together. I felt like he was getting bounced all over the line of scrimmage and getting put out of his gap. We'll see more of the starters maybe in this game. But yeah, maybe do we get any Casey Toohill? What kind of impact can he have? Does Cameron Klein build on his game and kind of go forward? What does Solomon do? So on and so forth. Defensive lines are so important in football today, but especially to the Bills based on the type of defense that they play. So they can't afford to have kind of these performances stack, one after the other. And if Ed Oliver is out again,
Right.
what does that
Extra
rotation look like?
opportunity.
And exactly, that is your opportunity. Cool. Dwayne Carter, you're going to get more reps. Deshaun Williams, you're going to get more reps, so on and so forth. Anything else on your second point, rookies or defensive line stuff?
Nah, I'm good.
Copy that. All right, Kendall, your third point. The floor is yours. Godspeed.
Third point is secondary depth. I think there's just a lot of moving and shaking in the secondary, and there's a lot of battles to be had to make the end of this roster within that position group. And I also just love watching coverage on coaches' film. So
Fair.
I'm going to be geeking out on all of that stuff for the next game as well. And Steelers always have good pass catchers, so it's a good test there. They know how to coach them up in Pittsburgh. But yeah, like Kyer Elam really there. I guess after watching the all 22, I'm still very encouraged based on what I said in the post game podcast about how he seems to be playing a lot more confident. And I'm
Quiet
very
feet.
happy.
He looks calm back there, poised.
Exactly. Poise is definitely the right word. Like he's very sure of himself and he doesn't get rattled by much right now. You can see he's just mentally calm.
I like that.
But there's still a lot to prove, and he's still kind of working from behind the eight ball, which sucks for him, but it's kind of the bed that he made for himself. And I want to keep watching how he progresses because watching him in tandem with like Jamarcus Ingram, both of them have quiet feet, but the way they do it is very different. Like Ingram is very like calculated and controlled with his movements. And I feel like Elam is very long and loose at times with his movements. And I kind of want to see him get a little bit like tighter and more compact and explosive out of those movements. But obviously so much of that is just limited by your body type, like who you are and your natural gait. Like some of that is unchangeable. But it felt like he was kind of getting, losing a split second here, like maybe half a yard there in separation just because of some of those movement patterns of his. So just little things I noticed, but I am overall very happy with how he performed in the first game and hope that he can keep that going. And then Cam Lewis, I mean, I thought he played a great game. I can't wait to see if that keeps going because I feel like we're always talking about like, oh my God, if Teron Johnson goes down, like what are we gonna do? And I felt like he played a very solid game in backup there in the nickel. That coverage that we thought wasn't a penalty against Romo Junze. I honestly still think it's close though. Like he definitely puts hands on him, but like
he impeded him significantly though.
For sure, but he had great positioning. Like
true.
He's playing outside leverage and then he outbreaks it without any deception. Like he's in the right spot.
He 100% ran the route for
exactly.
Odunze.
Like at a certain point, like I don't know. To me, I don't love that flag. Like I could see how it's called because there was contact for sure.
Yeah.
And I believe it was called illegal contact, not like
which is why I was fine. I mean, to your point,
like by the letter of the law, that is illegal contact, so it's okay. But like, it was good coverage. Like
it was good coverage. I also just hate let dudes play. Like it's so hard to be a friggin' DB. Like come on, man.
Exactly.
Like,
That's why I was like, come on. So I'm happy with what Cam Lewis is showing us. And then safety, there's just a lot. There's a lot going on at safety right now. Obviously, we talked about a play where Rapp just absolutely blows up a fullback on a toss, which is awesome.
So pretty.
Very decisive from him, and it allows his teammates to float the ball because he forces the ball back inside. It was a good play by him. And then Damar Hamlin just kind of quietly, very sound game, but I want to see more from him because I feel like he wasn't really put in positions Or sorry, I shouldn't say he wasn't put in positions. He just happened to not be in positions to make plays this game.
Mm.
There were a couple of times where he was just washed out by some trash in the run game. He just couldn't make the play. Some of that's on him. Some of that's just play calling. But I want to see if he can make a little bit more of a splash. Not necessarily like interceptions and stuff like that, but just a little bit more of a splash to show his impact on the field in this next game, because there's just a lot of moving and shaking in the secondary. So kind of want to see how that continues to play out, because I feel good about the starters, but we also don't really know what the ideal starters are at safety. And then I want to see how the depth stuff works out at corner.
So I'm with you for this last point. I literally titled it "Moving and Shaking" in the secondary. When starting with the ones, I thought it was interesting, and I guess maybe not so because Hamlin isn't like super athletic either. But I thought it was interesting with the single high stuff that the ones did. Rapp was predominantly the post safety, and Hamlin was predominantly the box safety, or the guy who was down, whether they were running cover 3 Sky or Buzz. Like, he was the one who was coming down, and not that. Again, it shouldn't be too crazy, because it's not like, well, Hamlin is a speed demon, it has great range, because he doesn't. But it's interesting to see, especially pairing it with last year. When Milano went down, the first thought for me was like, oh, cool. Now Taylor Rapp can be the dime linebacker. And instead they were like, nope, Poyer's going to be the dime linebacker and Rapp's going to be deep. And I was like,
they clearly don't like him in that like overhang role. Or
I don't know if they don't like him in that, or they just like him deep. Like, either way, I find it very interesting, because I know it was several years ago. I'm going to keep going back to him being the guy who played dime linebacker in the Super Bowl and was covering down on Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and making an impact. Like, again, it's different than being in that role on first and second down when there's more run responsibility. But it is very interesting just with how he's being used as that post guy. And again, either way, it scares me, because like a Rapp Hamlin combo doesn't have single high post safety range. Like, those aren't dudes that are going to kind of make plays either way. So it kind of scares me a little bit. But yeah, so we're starting with the safeties. I kind of want to see how that rotation continues to work out. Kendall Williamson, really stupid penalty with that hit, but I thought he had a couple interesting plays in the game. He had a nice cover down with Hamlin in the red zone. The big completion to Kmet from Caleb Williams, that everybody was talking about, the throw from Caleb Williams. They're in cover 1 on that play, and Dorian gets caught with his eyes in the backfield, and Kmet just blows by him. And so that play isn't on Williamson. It's a hard play because it's a corner route.
He could have reacted maybe a little faster.
He puts himself. He does a thing right as Williams is booting to. So if I'm Williamson, Caleb is booting this way. For some reason, right as Caleb starts booting, he takes like a jump step to his right. And then has to get on his horse to make a play on Kmet. If he doesn't take that jump step, he might make a play on the ball. And even with that, I like that. So Caleb puts the ball kind of behind Kmet, and Kmet has to turn and catch it. And Williamson goes for the punch and tries to knock it out, and he almost gets it. Wow, that's a super loud siren. Can you hear that on the mic?
Yeah.
It's crazy loud. Wow. I have the windows open because it was such a beautiful day. Sorry, everyone. Or I guess the cops just are like, no, Williamson sucks. Light him up. Yeah, he's the worst. So I thought like that play, like the recovery wasn't too bad, but
but that's why the initial positioning on that play is somewhat problematic, where he had an opportunity to read the free man. Like, Kmet got by Dorian very quickly. Obviously he has a lot to process. There's a lot in that field of vision for a deep safety. So it's tough to see that flash of navy blue and know, oh, okay, that's the guy I got to pick up.
And I can understand and again, like, you're in the post, Kmet can break towards you, break away from you. Like that's funny from Pop said you're adding sound effects. That's good. Like, so you got to respect that, but it did, like, he was watching Caleb. And Caleb boots, so I'm like, bro, he's booting, go with him. But then I guess there is the opportunity. Maybe there's a leak. Maybe there's something happening across the other way. So I get it. But I'm interested to see how he plays, because I really none of the other safeties stood out in any way, shape, or form.
I agree. He was the only one that flashed in the depth of that group.
And what does Mike Edwards' timeline look like? What does Cole Bishop's timeline look like? Like, there's a very realistic chance that you're going into the season with Rapp and Hamlin as your starters, and Kendall Williamson is your safety 3. Like, that's what it looks like right now, depending on what happens with Edwards' return from injury. Does he play next week? Does he get any time at all? If he does come back between the end of the preseason and the regular season, I feel like that's not going to be enough for them to push him up and becoming a starter. Like, does he even make the squad at that point? There's so much muddiness around him. And so, yeah, I feel like there's a realistic, like if there's betting odds, I feel like that's a realistic shot. If you wanted to bet like the top 3 safeties for week 1 are going to be Taylor Rapp, Damar Hamlin, and Kendall Williamson. Like Burgess had a really ugly missed tackle. You didn't really get a lot from Delaney. I mean, Kareem Jackson's a vet. He's probably safety 4 just because you're putting him back there as a known quantity, I guess. But overall, I think the safety spot is ugly. And again, it's funny or maybe like painfully ironic that it's ugly compared to what it's been for the entirety of the McDermott tenure, which was like Hyden Poyer, you're fine. Even though they looked a little long in the tooth last year, they were still a fine safety tandem, even with their limitations due to their age and the miles on the tires. But yeah, safety is still a little ugly for me. I am interested to see again what continues to happen at corner. I really like what Jamarcus Ingram did. Like the physicality, the one play I sent you earlier when I texted you, like that jump press at the line where he just buries the dude. Like he times it so perfectly.
Yeah,
like he's there in press and you can see him waiting for the snap to develop. And as it does, he drops his inside foot and then launches and just buries the dude. It was so well timed, so precise with his movements and his keys. And his hand positioning. He had another rep too that I tweeted out before the show went live. Oh, it was on the Caleb Williams to Cole Kmet play. On the other side of the field, he's in press against Keenan Allen, who I know Keenan Allen is in prime Keenan Allen, but he's still a very good route runner, and he has a tremendous release package. He and Devontae Adams are still up there for like the dudes who have the best release packages in football. And he's in a soft shoe press. So for those who don't know, it means he's in press on the line and on the snap. He's not going for the jam, but he's right up in Keenan Allen's face and he's mirroring what Keenan Allen's doing. So Keenan Allen takes a step this way. Ingram takes a step this way. Keenan Allen takes a step that way. He takes a step that way. And then he gets hands on Keenan Allen, is physical with him throughout the entirety of the route, doesn't even let him get beyond like 5 or 6 yards. Keenan Allen tries to run a drag. He tries to get vertical at one point and snap it off, and Ingram is just all over him and just like suffocating him. That rep was really great, in addition to the other one that I talked about. And I thought he had a really strong game. Like I was probably most impressed with him than I was any other corner. And I thought Kaiir Elam had some nice plays as well. And maybe it's just the expectation level, but I thought Ingram had a really strong day, and that type of physicality and tenacity that he brings, it's just so welcome on a defense. Like I love dudes that maybe aren't the most skilled, but they have no fear going up and being like, yo, I'm going to punch you in the mouth and we're going to see what happens. Like I loved the Bengals, Bills playoff game. Early on in that game, Taylor Britt, the rookie corner from Nebraska, gets into Diggs' face and jams him and literally punches him right in the face, like on the snap. And I love that as like a dude who's going to like set the tempo to let you know, like, I'm here all day. You might beat me. You're going to have to work for it. Like, I'm going to be on you all day. It's going to be a grind. Like, I like the tone that he sets and the intensity that he plays with. And he had a good game from a technique standpoint. It wasn't just like vibes and dog mentality stuff. So I like what he did. Daquan Hardy had a couple nice reps, but nothing too notable. Corey Couch got beat really bad on that one big conversion that he also got flagged for pass interference for, but he had a couple nice reps aside from that. He had a really nice run fit that he missed a tackle on. I'm really just, again, continuing to monitor the whole, like, back up to Taron Johnson position. And I also think, too, to go in the Cam Lewis discussion, if safety is murky, is Cam Lewis more of like safety 3 or safety 4? And
That's
then
a great question.
Because that also ties into what they think of Cam Lewis, but also if someone else can emerge as the second team nickel, then they can feel more confident putting Cam Lewis into the safety
more what
depth
it's
role.
about. I think that's more what it's about, because I think nickel is far more important to this defense than either of the two safeties, believe it or not. I don't know. Maybe that's just what I think. And they're worried about what the depth behind Taron looks like versus what the starters at safety looks like, which is, I guess, a weird contingency to be worried about than the starters. But I don't know. I feel like you preclude yourself from putting Lewis at safety without a backup plan behind Taron.
I completely agree. And it just we talked about it with outside corner, like corners are going to get banged up. They're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
nickel, I feel like, is even more so because they're involved in run fits so
Yeah,
much.
I
Like
mean, we saw it for the first like 3 years with Taryn.
yeah, Taryn would play like a psycho and he would get banged up all the time. And I say psycho as like a very complimentary like term because I love the
I
way
know,
he
right?
plays. But you're like always getting hit. Like whether
Mhm.
you're in contact with somebody in coverage or you're taking on a block or you're making a tackle, like being in and around the
Yeah.
box, like being that apex defender, it's extremely demanding mentally, but also physically. So that's a spot that's more likely to get banged up than the outside dudes. And the outside dudes are already at a high risk. So yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Like, and not that the depth charts mean anything, but like Cam Lewis was listed on the depth chart as like a second team safety going into that game, but played like the second
Yeah.
team nickel stuff. And again,
Yeah.
not that that means anything, but I feel like, yeah, that like, okay, no, somebody's got to show us something for us to move Cam out of this spot.
Mhm.
Granted, it is preseason, kind of see what happens there. But yeah, I think there's so many questions still to be answered. Like, what is the safeties? How good do the starting safeties look? What does the depth look like behind the starters and the group as a whole? Who's backing up Taryn? How does that impact the safeties? And then, yeah, what's the outside corner battle looking like? I'm still, it's Benford and Douglas for me right now, who are, the starters. And Kyer was like, oh, really nice corner three. I don't know. Like Jamarcus Ingram looked like a legit dude against the Bears, against their starters. Like, if that continues again, I don't know. Like if Jamarcus Ingram comes out and bosses George Pickens, like, are we like Jamarcus Ingram is corner three? Like, if he continues to show out against dudes like that, because also remember, this was a dude who got in 2 years ago, that stupid Heat game in Miami. Benford got hurt.
Mhm.
The corners for the majority of that game were Elam and Jamarcus Ingram.
Yeah.
Like, Jamarcus Ingram was playing in that game, going up against Hill and Waddle and their whole squad of
Mhm.
dudes. And we didn't come out of that game going, man, Jamarcus Ingram got torched.
We
Granted, it was
came
'cause
out of that game being like, we can't do that again because it was
correct.
frightful. It was
Yes.
terrifying.
And
But
granted, the Bills had the ball for like 75% of the game, so the defense wasn't on there a
it
ton.
still felt like felt scary every defensive snap
Oh,
because
yeah, I
you
was holding my breath
knew.
every
Yeah.
time because I was just like, oh, we're so banged
But
up. Like, this is
you're
just
not
so
wrong. Like
scary.
in hindsight, after that game, you weren't like, "Oh my god, like they played terrible. We
Yeah.
need our starters back." You needed your starters back for your mental health.
Yes. And what's also nice with Ingram, he gives you inside outside versatility. Like, he
Yeah,
started as a nickel dude. So then I'm
he
like,
did.
okay, is he the backup nickel? Does he see backup nickel reps in this game? Like, there's so many
Yeah.
and that's why I
It would
say
be nice to get those
yes.
answers.
Right? And that's why I titled it like the moving and shaking in the
Yeah,
secondary because there's so many,
it's a lot.
I don't want to say holes,
Possibilities.
but
It's
there's so many,
possibilities.
yes, there's so many possibilities and there's multiple puzzle pieces and
Yeah.
multiple open spots. And you can kind of put the puzzle pieces wherever you want. It's still going to make the puzzle fit. And yeah, so I'm very interested to see how that plays again. And against a group in Pittsburgh who will test you a little bit. Fields is still Fields at this point, but there's athleticism there. You do have George Pickens. And why am I blanking on? I was about to say Deontay Johnson, and I was like, no, wait, he got
No.
traded to
Roman
the
Wilson's
Panthers.
injured.
Yes, Roman Wilson is banged up. So it's, that's who I was thinking of. Van Jefferson is the
I know
other
they've been
starter
talking
outside.
well of Calvin Austin too. They like Calvin Austin down there right now.
I liked Calvin Austin when he came out of, what was it, Memphis, right?
Yeah, but
Several
he
years
hasn't
ago.
done much, but I know the Steelers are talking him up a lot.
This is a receiver group that is interesting, and I don't necessarily mean that complimentary. It's Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, Quez Watkins, Des Fitzpatrick, Roman Wilson, Jacob Copeland, Jeray Jenkins, Scotty Miller, and then Deuce Watts.
Well, by the time
So,
it's game time, they could have Brandon Ayuk.
oh man, that's wild. Anybody could have Ayuk. Snip. That's the ultimate Michael Scott like office snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. Like every day, it's like I don't know where he's going or what he's doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm interested to see kind of who gets matched up on Pickens. And yeah, if it's another day where, especially for a dude like Pickens, who is athletic and like violent, I really want to see Ingram on him, pressing him. I want to see that
Yeah.
type of like heavyweight
I mean,
fight.
I
In
want to
terms of
see that for
violence.
like all of our corners. For
Fair.
all 4 of our top 4 corners, I want to see what they look like
But I
against
feel
Pickens.
like fair, but I feel like the mentality of it
Yes.
is
No.
just
What
like
you said.
so
Yeah. I definitely like that's probably the marquee ones just in terms of like the archetype matchup. Like
fair.
you want to see that. But I want to see that measuring stick for all 4
Fair.
guys. Because even Rasul Douglas, it's like kind of that strength on strength. Like you want to
Oh,
see
absolutely.
what length and strength versus each other looks like.
Yeah.
And yeah.
He's just more quiet. I can see Douglas like jamming
Yeah.
him and just being like kind of like whatever. But I could see like Ingram jamming Pickens and Pickens jawing at Ingram and Ingram giving it right back. Like I said this on the film room last week. When Eric and I were at camp, Claypool and Ingram were going at it with each other a little bit. And Claypool is obviously like a monster of a man.
Right.
And I looked right at Eric and I was like, dude, I would rather fight Chase Claypool than Jamarcus Ingram like any day of the week. I think Jamarcus Ingram, like,
It's got that bit of crazy.
From a Bill standpoint, Jamarcus Ingram is very much near the top of the list of dudes that I would not fight on the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, they're football players and they're bigger and stronger than all of us, but like Ingram is close to the top of my list of like dudes that I just don't want it with. Like I feel I would take Jamarcus. You could put Jamarcus Ingram against like Trent Williams, the left tackle for the Niners, and they'd be like, who wins in a fight? And I'd be like, Jamarcus Ingram. Like I just feel like Ingram is that dude where like even if he loses, like he's taking like your ACL with him, or like
he's coming out with a pinky.
Yes, he's ripping out part of your rib cage, or like something is coming with him, and I just don't want any part of that. But it's awesome to have him, and yeah, the DB conversation, it's fun. It's interesting how it's kind of become a position group. As we've gone forward, I think safety has become like a talking point, but more in a scarier fashion, and the corners have become a talking point, but more in like a
it's fun. It's
hopeful.
All these guys. It's like, oh my god, this embarrassment of riches. It's definitely an interesting vibe going on at corner, because it's the funny thing too is like nationally no one cares about our corners. Nationally no one has a clue, and they're like, the Bills are weak in the secondary, and it's like, well, safeties have some concerns.
Nobody knows Christian
most
Benford,
of our corners,
let alone everyone else.
Are actually kind of just hidden nationally, and they're all fairly sufficient.
Yeah, it's funny too because I keep seeing all these like the people at PFF and like all these like data scientist people keep posting all these charts for like coverage. I showed one of them last week, that separation one. There's so many like that. And all of them, literally all of them, they're different. All have like Christian Benford in the quadrant with like Sauce Gardner and like Derek Stingley and like all these dudes. And not one person is like,
no one knows.
Should I go watch Christian Benford?
If you don't watch the tape, like I would never go out on a ledge for Christian Benford. Fair. Like it's not the name. It's a 6th round rookie from Villanova,
and it's not like he had like 7 interceptions or something. He doesn't have these eye popping moments. Like he's just a solid dude.
But he's very solid, like very dependable when he's on the field and healthy. So it's tough to stick your neck out for him if you're a national guy.
It's just funny though. I would have thought somebody would have connected the dots, like no pun intended, for those charts. I think and been like,
they're waiting for more sample.
But like even with that, like I just wanted one person to be like, this guy keeps popping. Let me go watch the tape and then be like, oh, okay. Like that cover 3 rep where he picks off Tua when he's covering Tyreek Hill in week 18, where he splits. I think he splits Hill and Cedric Wilson, and Hill is in the slot. They send him on that cheetah motion. He splits them both, sees that the ball is going to Hill, and granted, Tua underthrows it a bit. Yeah, he comes over the top.
Yeah, it's the positioning. Like, if he wasn't in that position, he couldn't capitalize on the mistake of the slightly poor throw.
Fair. Yeah, it's just, man. Oh, Walter says, I love that Ant seemingly has a Bills players to fight list equipped with rankings. That is like it's
every year.
It's funny. I hate coming to these realizations like as the season is coming through, because now once the season's starting, like you have the content, the schedule, and the rhythm. This is very much like an off-season episode content of like, let's rank the top 10 dudes we wouldn't want to fight, and the top 10 dudes are like the top 5 we wouldn't want to fight and the top 5 we would. And yeah, that's just, I thought of it the other day, literally just because of watching him jam the hell out of that receiver. Like he's just a dude that's gonna get at you. Oh, I like this. Claude with a tremendous Casino reference. He says, Ant, Ingram is Nicky in Casino. If you beat him with hands, he'll come back with a bat. If you win with a bat, he'll come back with knives. And then, have you ever seen Casino?
I haven't.
Oh, and then the quote goes on from there. It's like, if you beat him with a knife, he'll come back with a gun. If you come at Nicky with a gun, you better kill him. And Nicky's played by Joe Pesci. Casino, that's where the blueberries line in the beginning of the show comes from.
Right. I did know that.
Yeah, De Niro's running the casino and his cook is not. It's so random. Like De Niro is eating breakfast with like somebody important and the guy's talking to him, and De Niro like cuts open his muffin and the blueberries are like not even. So he goes back to the cook and is like, from now on, an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. It's both of them. He stops the guy talking and he's like, look how many blueberries your muffin has, and look at mine. I have none. And he's like, come on. And he takes him back to the kitchen to yell at the chef. Well done, Claude. Claude, you win this episode. You win this episode for this comment. I
Yeah,
appreciate
you just made his day.
You did. Casino's a top 5 movie of all time for me. I've seen it probably over 55, 60 times. It's my favorite mob movie.
I'm going to have to start number 1 watch.
Dude, it's, what's funny too is it's one of those movies that like, oh, I love this. Zach says I rewatched Casino 2 weeks ago. It's one of those movies that like, if you have the movie channels, like they play it on like Stars all the time, or like Showtime, one of those types of things. It's the way like TNT plays The Accountant, that movie with Ben Affleck, like every friggin' week, no matter what, at like 10 o'clock on like a Thursday or like Wednesday. Casino.
We all know the shows. We all know the movies. They're everywhere.
Right. They're everywhere. Yeah, you got to watch Casino. Casino's a good one. Well done, Claude. Anything else? Anything to watch for? Player, a niche aspect, a coach, anything or everything that is on your mind potentially?
No, I mean, if we're going broad again, yeah, it just goes back to urgency. I don't want to say prep because it's just preseason. It's really just about being ready and urgent for your next opponent. And I feel like they're going to come out with a level of urgency that's definitely going to be different from game 1. And obviously that all starts with McDermott and then how they execute this week in this joint practice setting. I think it's a really good opportunity for them to improve over the next 4 days or so. So I think it's going to be a different vibe from the Bills. I don't think we're going to see them come out as flat as we saw.
I hope so. And you and I talked about it going into the start of the post-game show with just like how the Bills looked and like not ready to play and the physicality aspect, and then tying it into what offseason schedules are like now, padded practices and the lack of hitting and tackling and physicality and all that kind of stuff. So I think these joint practices like really are a godsend. I think they ratchet up the intensity. Like, I don't want anybody getting hurt, but like I loved watching all the Lions-Giants fights last week. Like,
it shows people want it. They're competitive.
Yes. And I just miss that. Like, again, I know player safety is better now overall in the league, but and again, this is probably another boomer take, like back in my day, but I just remember growing up and how important and intense 2-a-days were.
Right.
Like the idea of like, 2-a-days are everything. And that's when like teams become a team and the physicality and the intensity. And I even remember like little things like, the Jaguars used to have their practices at night because it was too hot during the day, and between the heat and the physicality, like they couldn't practice during the day. And like, there was so much more intensity. And I think, and again, the league was played differently back then, but stylistically in the rules, but tackling, we talk about it every year. Like tackling gets worse. It seems like every single year. And there's like, they're trying to teach new techniques and things to be able to tackle, but still be safe. And it just seems like a lot of it. And again, I am all for player safety, but so much of this game at its core is get big and strong, put on equipment, and slam your body into another dude who's also trying to get big and strong wearing equipment. Like, you can't remove that physicality. And I don't want anybody getting hurt, but
that is the core, like mechanic of this game.
Yeah, so trying to remove that is tough. And it's, I know so many people are like, no, dude, I want to see touchdowns. I want to see, games that are 45-35. And I'm over here being like, nah, give me a 17-10 game where like the corners fit in the run and upending a running back and spearing somebody. Like,
it's actually exciting because it's rare when you get points. It means something more when points are earned.
Yeah. I want that kind of, make defense great again type of thing. And give me a good old fashioned like Big Ten football game where it's like 10-7. No.
Someone's been watching too much Iowa.
No, bro. That's where I draw the line. There's a difference between good defense and bad offense.
And Iowa.
Like, yes, and Iowa. I want to see good defense. And again, I think something that is to that, like you don't want kind of friendly fire happening in camp. So you try to limit that and limit physicality. But when you go to these joint practices, even if you're trying to be safe, that intensity gets ratcheted up. Dudes start popping pads and throwing hands a little bit. So I'm interested to see, how those joint practices go in a vacuum for themselves in and of itself, but also how that leads into the game, how that transitions into the game against the Steelers. And especially, like we said, for a team like the Bills who did not bring it in week 1 of the preseason against the Bears. Anything else on your mind before we start to wind down a little bit, Kendall?
No, that's it.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to throw up the sponsor, One Pipe Pizza. You folks know the drill. They are the best pizza in Buffalo, in my humble opinion. And I don't say that because they sponsor the show. And I say this every week. It's not just a shill line, but I think it's appropriate. I didn't partner with them, because oh, they threw like they wanted to sponsor or do whatever. Like, I don't say they're the best pizza, because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they are the best. And they do a ton of great stuff for the community. I say it every week. I go through like the Rolodex of stuff, partnering with the Alzheimer's Foundation, the SPCA, Roswell to try and knock out cancer, Toys for Tots initiatives every holiday season. They're just really good people making really good food. Cup and char pepperoni, sweet sauce pie, homemade blue cheese. It's absolutely tremendous. It's like a weekly staple for me to get one pie, at very least like monthly. So it's absolutely tremendous. Go get yourself some one pie pizza. Online menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you are listening to this show on. I'm going to throw up the banner that says Toodles, folks, as we start to wind down. We're going to grab this comment from Zach. It says, back in my day, we had our leg cut off on the job. It still came to work the next day. These young ones wouldn't get it. You know what's funny is I was talking to, I was at a baptism Sunday, and I was talking to, and then we had like a barbecue after, and I was talking to my buddy's dad, and we were talking about like, because he played football, and we were talking about what football was like in the 70s and 80s and all those things. And the thing that he was talking about was like, they used to purposefully deny you water because like that was a sign of weakness. Like you didn't need water. And I remember my dad telling me what coaches used to tell him was you wouldn't put cold water on a hot engine in a car. So why would you put cold water in a hot body during a practice? And I'm just like, oh, how bad the science was back then was just wild. And it's so funny. Some of the back in my day stuff that was like, legit of like, yeah, we're not giving our players water because that's weakness. Like that's for quitters. You want water, that's for you're a quitter. It's just like, man, like how things have changed a little bit. Oh, and I got to bring up this from Roy. Roy says he's never seen Casino, which is fine. Kendall hasn't seen it either. It happens. He said, I've never seen Casino. I've never had one pie pizza. I haven't had chicken wings in over 40 years. I'm a mess. I have a bit of a hot take. I'm not a big chicken wing guy.
How dare you?
I don't mind them. I'm cool eating them, and I do have favorite chicken wing spots.
But there's not like a readily available craving that you're always going.
And I would much rather do chicken fingers or like boneless chicken bites. Like that's which that aren't like anything. Like it's. I think it's for me.
It's not chicken wings. Yeah.
No, I hate like. And especially because I'm a barbecue guy. So then like my hands are all barbecue-y. I got to do the thing where like if I want to drink my glass, I got to grab it with my palms like this and do this. Then like I'm trying
to get a lot. I think it's better at home, but then of course you can't make wings.
No, it's tough. And
wings aren't better at home. They're usually better from like a sports bar. And
I am a drums guy. Exactly. I'm a drums guy over flats guy because I think the meat is better on the drum. Like the flat, I never feel like I get the meat out properly. Like it's just like I feel like there's so much going on. And I'm also like a big
definitely a lot.
Yes. I'm also a big blue cheese guy. So the drum is perfect. So I can like dip the chunk in or I can rip the chunk out, dip and eat. Like I feel like it's hard to put a flat into the blue cheese.
It is.
Yeah. There's a guy like this from Walt. He said, I'm going to do you a favor and forget you said all this. I will go out like if me and my boys are like going out.
Weird.
Like we'll do wings. And I grew up on, man, I don't think they even do it in Buffalo anymore. I remember like the spots that would do like 25-cent wing night Tuesdays and we'd go and house like 50 wings. Like I like wings, but I don't like love them. And if my option is pizza or wings, I'm taking pizza 1,000% every single day of the week. Like it's not even close.
This isn't to say you don't like wings. This is to say you have a lot of gripes with it.
Yes, and I'm just not a big wing guy.
Despite the gripes.
And I think of some of it for me, especially like living in New York City for 9 years. Like people be like, "Oh, you're from Buffalo," and like the two things are always like, "Haha, the Bills suck," and then the other thing was always like, oh, like, do you love chicken wings? And I'm always like, they're all right.
Yeah, like they're chicken wings. It's more to Buffalo than chicken.
That's fair. Zach said, why not both? There can be both. I'm a big like pizza and wings guy, but if I have to pick one, or even like, so say we're doing something, say we're having like a family get together or having a party or something, or we're doing pizza and wings, I'm definitely going to get like 3 or 4 slices of pizza and maybe like 5 wings, if that. Like I'm going to rock the pizza first. And if I still want some wings, I'll go get some. But just pizza trumps the wings for me. I like this from Walter too. Oh, I get it. If this is the preseason, these comments don't matter. That's fair.
Yeah, we're all just getting informed. We're all just getting informed.
Roy says boneless, quote unquote, boneless chicken wings. Otherwise, there's no meat. Yeah, it's just, I'm also, chicken fingers are my top thing. You give me a good, like, dry rub chicken finger, like.
Oh, it goes for the dry rub. Okay.
Yeah, if you get give me a dry rub chicken finger and then glaze me some barbecue sauce on it and then also give me a cup of blue cheese. That's what I'm I'm rocking. Oh, Pop says
Needy boy.
Pop says boneless wings or nuggets. That's fine. Give me a chicken nugget. I'm cool with the chicken nugget.
Yeah,
If
that's
you
the
also
thing.
want to,
Everyone's description of like
that's right.
what a boneless chicken wing actually is. Like, oh, am I even allowed to say chicken wing when I say boneless?
I
And
guess not.
everyone's
So
got
yeah,
different
that's fine.
definitions.
Give me a chicken nugget. If you want to put it in the shape of a dinosaur, I'll take that as well.
Right?
No
It
fair.
tastes
Give
the
me some
same.
dino nuggets. Yeah, I'll take some dino nuggets. Yeah, it all goes down the same. It's all the same process. Oh, I missed appreciate this from Teddy. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you for the super chat. Teddy says, Ant, my favorite Buffalo sports personality. Cheers, brother. Thank you very much, Teddy. That's awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for the kind words and the super chat and for being here. Tank Ninja says the best wings are dinosaur shaped. I love that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so I do like if I go to Bar-Bill, I'll get some wings, but their chicken fingers, they do a barbecue rub that is so good. And I know
I need
everybody's
to
like
get back to Buffalo.
the wings are good, man.
Yeah.
What is I think what is it? Somebody, I guarantee somebody in the chat goes to Bar-Bill a bunch. What's the wing? What's the one that everybody loves at Bar-Bill? I think that Josh Allen
Is
loves it,
that
like
the
Cajun
Cajun honey butter
Yeah, something like
something?
that.
I know it's honey
Yeah.
butter. I know that much is in
I
it.
think it's Cajun honey butter. They're good. I'm just a barbecue guy. Like I love. Oh, how dare you all? This is boneless wings with a non-contact, no pads of chicken. That's very good. Oh, Zach Nail. Yeah, Cajun honey butter barbecue.
Barbecue in there.
Well
Okay.
Done. Well done. Oh,
That's a
RJ
lot
says,
of flavors.
That is a lot of flavors in one. They're delicious though. RJ says Kendall is big on Dino Nuggets and a Capri Sun. Oh, I forgot the Capri Sun jokes.
I mean, I
That's
don't
good.
understand how anyone look, I understand we all grow up, but you never grow out of that. Like, come
I was
on,
gonna say,
Dino Nugs and Capri Sun, like you're not growing out of that. We're all just big
who would
kids
turn
here.
that down? If I had somebody, if one of my friends like
look, if it's every day, you got to turn it down once.
True,
Like it's
that's
just not
fair.
good for you.
But if I
like,
offered somebody like Dino Nuggets and a Capri Sun and they were like, no thanks, I would be like,
yeah, you'd look
what?
at them with like a sideways face. You're like, okay, this guy's a little strange.
What's going on? I went to my niece's birthday party like a couple months ago and they had like it was like a bunch of families, so we had like a whole bunch of coolers and you had like pop in one and like waters and alcoholic stuff, and then another one with a bunch of Capri Sun and juice boxes. I housed like 4 Capri Suns. Like they're fantastic. Even though they changed them since we were little because they tried to remove the sugar.
Well, of course, back in my day.
Yeah, back in my day. Trying to remove the sugar from a Capri Sun is like trying to take the physicality out of football. Like no one's drinking the Capri Sun for the natural juice and the health. They're drinking it because it's like 3% fruit juice and 97%
some people
fructose.
Just drink it for the pouch.
All the pouches. Yeah, but you got to stab the pouch. Sometimes it's hard to get in there. Jason has a good comment. He says, Kendall is using that de-aging technology they used on Robert De Niro and The Irishman. No way it's a year later and he looks younger. That's fair. That's fair. Oh, Jason with another one saying, you don't grow out of nuggets and Capri Sun until a woman lives with you and you were trying to pretend you are sophisticated. I second. As a married man, I second that.
Yeah, and but then you revert after you get married and you're comfortable with one another and you're like,
that's right.
Yeah, we're going to Costco for 100 Capri Suns.
That's right. That's when I come home from grocery shopping and she is putting everything away and she says, you got pizza rolls again? And I'm like, yep. That's
just a big kid over here trying to live life.
They're just sometimes you just need a pizza roll. I know I'm going to get heartburn. I know they're terrible. I don't want to know what's in them. They're delicious.
Pizza inside a roll.
In a roll. It's fantastic. A good Saturday afternoon in like October, watching college football all day and then cracking like a good IBC root beer and some pizza rolls. Man, man. Oh, Zach covered it. Seeing if somebody won't accept Dino Nuggets and a Capri Sun means that person has the soul sucked out of him.
See, we've all lived once.
That's right. I like this from Roy too. Married men walk around in their boxers drinking Capri Sun. That's good.
Oh man, we've gone off the rails.
We have. Tank just says sometimes I buy Lunchables to bring back memories of 5th grade science camp. I was never a Lunchables guy.
I've done this recently. I've literally done this recently where I was like, I passed it. It's been so long. I have memories of this. It's got to be done. It's got to be done.
What did I do recently? Oh, I got some of the you ever had like the honey wheat pretzels?
Yes. Wait,
they're
the
delicious.
pretzel sticks?
Yeah, the braided twists, like the honey wheat ones. Yeah, I had those like 3 weeks ago. They were delicious, but that brought me back to being like my childhood. I love those. I would eat the rolled gold ones like a million times a year.
Yeah, those are problematic. If you buy those once, you keep looking for them every time you go back to them.
Absolutely. You can't stop. You can't stop. I don't know if I'm going to title this closing thoughts or if I'm really going to kind of detail
Food
the
rant.
conversation. Yeah, food rant. Off the rails about food stuff. Yeah, Zach of all trades. Yeah. Ooh, those pretzels. Oh, they hit those honey wheat twists. And it doesn't matter what brand you get. You could get like
It
the
really
rolled
doesn't.
gold ones, or
I
you could
get the
get some
Snyder's.
knockoff ones.
I get the Snyder's ones.
Oh, good call. Snyder's makes a good pretzel. Oh, ooh. Roy says I work at Kraft. I get free Lunchables sometimes.
Oh,
I
you know
more
who to
want
send them to.
Bro, no, give me the thing I love from Kraft, the character mac and cheeses, like the Scooby-Doo mac and cheese or SpongeBob mac and cheese. The cheese, I don't even know if it's real. It's basically powder. But like the noodle cheese ratio and combination, it just hits different. The Kraft character mac and cheese is amazing. I would
think
fight
what
for
we've
that.
learned in the last 10 minutes as an audience, and I'm part of the audience at this point, is that Anthony has a lot of strong feelings about the things that go into his body, most importantly the food. There's
I have a
a
lot of strong feelings
particular
on everything.
way about how fair, but there's a particularness about food ingestion that we've all just learned recently.
No, I just have rankings for things. Everybody has rankings. Like everybody loves a certain kind of mac and cheese. Some
No,
people
but
are like, "Oh,
you went
Velveeta."
through the preparation style of chicken wings and which type of chicken wings.
That's
And it's
true.
all very specific.
That one though, as a Buffalo person, that one
That's actually a
has to
good
be
point. Yeah,
that has to be
yeah.
classified. If we were
That's a
doing a show
great
in like
point.
Iowa, I wouldn't do that because I'd be like, nobody cares. Like, but as a Buffalo
Yeah,
person,
you're right.
if you say anything about chicken wings, like I feel like you have to continue.
You have to explain yourself.
Yes, because everyone's gonna be like, what do you mean? Like, you don't have a chicken wing tattooed on your face? What do you mean you don't love them? Like, you're from Buffalo. Oh, Roy says we don't do mac and cheese at the plant I work at. That's disappointing.
Wow, that is tough.
That's fair.
That's tough.
That's fair. Man, we really got off the rails here. This is a good time. Time. There's no better way to get ready for Bills Steelers than talking about chicken wings, mac and cheeses, Lunchables, Capri Suns, and Dino Nuggets.
We covered the gambit.
We did. We hit everything. This is a really good one. Any parting thoughts for the people before we say goodbye?
Nah, everyone just revisit their childhood and make yourself happy again.
I would say everybody go out and grocery shop tomorrow and get something that makes you
just
feel
one thing that makes you feel like a child again.
Something that you're nostalgic for. Go do it. It's good to do those things every once in a while. This is a really fun episode. It was nice to have you back for the third episode in a row talking Bill Steelers and a potential for as much as there can be like a get right game in the preseason. This kind of might be that for the Buffalo Bills against the Steelers.
Say it with your chest.
I don't want to because I don't know if I holistically believe in it. So we'll see kind of what happens and, detailing who and what to watch for going into this game. This was a really fun time. So thank you very much, Kendall, for taking the time and joining me again. Thank you very much to everybody in the live chat, all the back and forth with myself and Kendall. Questions, the thoughts, the engagement with each other and the engagement with us. If you have not already, before you leave, please, and thank you, drop a like on this video. It goes a sincerely long way towards helping myself and the entire team to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So if you have not dropped a like already on this video, please do so before you go. If you were watching post live, that's cool too. Please drop a like on this video here on YouTube. Turn on notifications for the Disguised Coverage playlist. Subscribe to the Cover One channel. All that good stuff. Thank you very much to Teddy for your super chat and the kind words that you put within that super chat earlier. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for that, sincerely. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate and review and subscribe to Disguised Coverage. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about the show and about how awesome it is. If they thought the show was terrible, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day by making them watch the show. Oh, this is a nice callback to being a kid. Royce has a Slinky. Yeah, I have a Slinky right there. I have a rainbow Slinky right there. It houses the little Walt Disney World football. I'm right there. Oh, good job, Roy. Way to bring it back. Well done. Appreciate that, Claude. Thank you very much. Glad you enjoyed the show. Yeah. Thank you very much to you again, Kendall. Thank you very much for everybody who joined us live. Thank you again, Teddy, to you for your super chat donation and for being here in general. And thank you to everyone, however you consume this content, watching it live, watching it later, listening, downloading, whatever have you. Greatly appreciate that. So thank you very much. Roy says 53 roster man projection next week. I'm trying to figure out where to work it in.
It's got to be before, like way before, but there's definitely a prime moment.
I think the roster cut down is Tuesday. 2 Tuesdays from now is roster cut down day, but usually teams start cutting down on that Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So like the last Bills game is next Saturday. So they play the Steelers this week, then they play the Panthers the following Saturday. They
It
usually
might be
start
part of the post-game show for
correct.
Saturday.
Like, honestly, it might be
I
against the
think that's when you
Panthers,
should do
so
it. Yeah, it's August the 27th. Last game is the 24th. I think you're gonna have to do it on the post-game show.
yeah, so I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know if it's gonna be the episode next Tuesday or if it's gonna be part of the post game after the Panthers, or maybe going live early Sunday to do a projection show. I want to do it in
Hmm.
some form or fashion. I've never done one. I've never been a roster projection person, but I
It's
kind of think I'd
nitty-gritty.
like to. Yeah,
It's fun, but it's a little nitty-gritty because you gotta look into the
absolutely.
history of what, like, McDermott has
Absolutely.
kept and stuff like that,
Yes. So
so
it deals with the player evaluation, player performance, history, contracts, all those pieces. So it is a fun exercise, but it does take a little bit. So yeah, good question,
Mhm.
Roy. I'm trying to figure out where. I would like to do one. I just need to figure out when and where, how to work it in. And then also tying it into like, I'm assuming like a lot of other people on the network are going to be doing a roster projection. So I
Yeah,
don't want it to be
probably.
another one that's lost in the shuffle. I actually think, if I'm correct, yeah, I think the show before me, Joe DeRosa, when he did his under review show, that was a roster projection show. So I don't want it to do. Pop says I need a dry erase board for the 53 projection. Yeah, oh, I should just get a giant dry erase board and do it that way, like a fantasy draft. That'd be
Ooh,
kind of cool. So yeah, good question, Roy. And I appreciate you asking that. I am trying to work it in specifically for myself in the show. I just got to figure out when and where and how and all that kind of stuff. Oh, Roy says do a collab. Maybe, yeah, maybe we'll do a network one. That might be kind of
that
cool.
would
I'll
make the
figure it
most
out.
sense.
Yeah. I'm gonna kick some ideas around. Maybe we'll do kind of like a cover one roster projection
Yeah.
super show episode on that Sunday afternoon or something like that. To kind of figure that out. Good question. And well done, Kendall. Well, nice and little alley oop there. Good teamwork. Anything else? Or should we say bye?
I think that's it from us.
Copy that. I think that'll be it from us. Again, hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. Thank you very much to everybody who tuned into the show live, post live, download, listen, view, whatever have you. Again, thank you to Teddy for your super chat. Take care. Be kind to one another. Godspeed. I will see you tomorrow, Wednesday, August 14th, for an episode of the Cover One Film Room. And then I will see you Saturday night, immediately following Bills Steelers, for another special edition, post-game edition of Disguise coverage. And then back live next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, for a regular scheduled edition of Disguise coverage. But that'll do it for us here on this show. For Kendall Mirsky, I'm Anthony Praska. This has been another episode of Disguise coverage. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.